We are back as we're going to use Basic Breakdown to break down Justimon, as this is going to be a deck that will be receiving support in both EXA and Special Booster 2.5. This is a deck that many people may have forgot about, but I haven't, and it's time for you, if you want to learn about it, to get your hands and understand what it does. But before I get into it, as always, one little request of you, and that is to accelerate the sub count if you are not subscribed, but remember to hit the video, and remember to turn on your notification bells when we do videos, as it helps us out and it lets me know that you're with us. As we continue, we're going to be getting into Justimon. So very quickly, Justimon is an interesting Digimon, being the, I would say, the fourth member of Tamers, or basically your special edition, a partner or last minute Digidestined added to the group, as that's exactly what Rio and Justimon effectively did, being the final bio merge. But more importantly than that, the key aspect of Justimon as a deck is that it has a lot of lore established prior, as Rio is interestingly a character that has existed prior to Tamers, where he was technically met Ken in the digital world, and there's a whole other story about that, but that is a different video for a different time. The main focus is that Justimon and cyberdramon as a whole are the main focus of this strategy, but there is also a bottom line that we'll be going over, and we'll be looking into it today. So let's jump into it, as we start at the humble beginnings of the eggs, as we have two here. Starting off, we have EX2's Hotmon here, where while you have a black tamer in play during your turn, this Digimon gets 1000 DP, and then more importantly for the new Hotmon out of BT19, while your opponent has a Digimon, you can gain Reboot. So very good to establish the power of the deck, as we only have two eggs, so we will only be showing you what we've been working with. Next, moving on into the two rookies specifically designed to support the strategy, we first have the EX2 Monodramon. Now this one is very simple. What it does is that on play, you search the top 4 cards of your deck, then you can add all black tamers that you excavate or find. And I think that's really interesting because there's not a lot of cards that actually do what this does. And the reason I say that is there's not many cards that just say grab everything you find. That's actually pretty insane. And like I said, not a lot of decks or cards do that as a whole. So Monodramon is one of the few, and it kind of shows you on what one of the main focuses of this deck is. So pretty much we have that. Now we'll move into the brand new one from BT19. We won't receive this until we get Special Booster 2.5, but it's okay, as it does a lot for the strategy, where on play, you reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. You get to add 1 card with the Dragon Kin or Cyborg trait, and 1 Rio, Akiyama, or Device trait option card among them to the hand, and then you return the rest to the bottom of the deck. Additionally, all turns you get 1000 DP. So we're starting to see, yes, this does a lot for the strategy, and it has to, because we only currently have 2 associated rookies, and like I said, that actually puts the deck in a really precarious situation where you don't have a lot on the bottom, but you have to work with what you got, if you know what I'm saying. Now, moving into our other additional rookies you can run, pretty much because this deck doesn't really have as many rookies as most, you can fill this out with Floodgates, as I have here, or additionally any other lower black engine you like to play. Additionally, an engine that used to be played with Justimon is the Commandramon line with D-Brigade, because you're able to use the rookies as your substitutes, but at that point you would be playing a different egg. I just thought I'd mention it here because pretty much because the deck's bottom end is still under-designed and under-supported, you can play whatever you want in the slot. Moving into your level 4s, we actually have 2 associated ones. First, starting off with the EX2 Strike-Dramon. This one is interesting, where when Digivolving, you reveal the top 4 cards of your deck, and you get to add 1 black tamer to your hand, and obviously the rest go to the bottom of your deck. Then, when attacking once per turn, if you have 2 or more black tamers, you get to gain a memory. So absolutely phenomenal there. Moving into the BT19 Strike-Dramon, I like this one, as it does a lot more in terms of adding to the strategy, where when Digivolving, if you have 1 or fewer tamers, you may play 1 Rio Akiyama from your hand without paying the cost, and then for its inheritable all turns, this Digimon gets 1000 DP. Being finally a card that can just simply play out Rio is very important, because he's obviously supposed to be your main tamer. So obviously, you know, that's a really powerful thing there. Moving into additionals, we don't really have anything I want to slide in here, because literally this deck can actually just sort of function with the 2 level 4s. and you'll see in a second why. As we move into the level 5s, this is where the bulk of the strategy powers up, as we have cyberdramon. Now, the reason cyberdramon gets more focus than strike-dramon and monodramon is that we actually don't see monodramon or strike-dramon in the Tamers anime. Actually, by the time that Rio appears, he always has cyberdramon as his main Digimon. So this is kind of the key aspect here, where we don't actually see a lot of support for the other two, but we have seen a lot of support for cyberdramon, as there's a lot of cyberdramons designed. Starting off with the one from EX2, this one, when digivolving, allows you to play Rio Akiyama from your hand without paying the cost, and then while you don't have any Tamers in play, this Digimon can't attack players. I think it's supposed to be a reference to the fact that since it has such a high DP, this is a nerf to it, but also the fact that without Rio present, you know, cyberdramon would go rampaging in the Tamers anime, so that's supposed to be a reference to that. Additionally, for its inheritable, when attacking once per turn, if you have 2 or more black Tamers, you get D-Digivolve -1. Or the main thing about this that I want to talk about quick is that this was one of the earliest D-Digivolving inheritable Digimon, so this is very important. I'm not saying it's the first, but it was definitely one that was meant to be archetypal, and it's really cool that this deck got it. Now we will be moving into, I think, the more useful of the Cyberdramons released. We have Cyberdramon Ace. Now, Cyberdramon Ace comes in here. It can blast Digivolve, obviously. Then on play, when Digivolving, you reveal the top 5 cards of your deck. You may play 1 black Tamer with a play cost of 4 or less among them without paying the cost. Then you return the rest to the top or bottom of the deck. Then if you have a Tamer, you get to D-Digivolve 1 on your opponent's Digimon. You carry Overflow -3, and then when attacking, D-Digivolve 1 on your opponent. Like I said, this does the whole 9 yards. It's worth the 5 memory. It accelerates the strategy. More importantly, you can put them on top or bottom, so in conjunction with the EX2 or monodramon, you can actually stack a bunch of Tamers and just add them all to your hand. So I think that's hilarious. Moving into the one we will be receiving soon in the EX or 1.5 or 2.5, sorry, we actually have a Cyberdramon, which can Digivolve atop a Strike-Dramon for a cost of 3. It carries Rush and Collision, and then when attacking, you trash one of your option cards in the battle area at the end of your turn. If your opponent has an unsuspended Digimon, this Digimon attacks a player, and for its inheritable, it carries Collision. So very, very cool here. Moving into the next one, we actually have a Cyberdramon that I've been waiting to talk about, and this is Cyberdramon X. As Cyberdramon X will actually be coming here before the other Cyberdramon, thanks to how we're getting EX8. We are going to be talking about this here as effectively you get to Digivolve on top of Cyberdramon for 0, so pretty standard for an X antibody. When Digivolving, if Cyberdramon or X antibody is in this Digimon's Digievolution cards, you may place 1 option card with a device trait from your hand or trash in the battle area. Then when Digivolving, by trashing one of your option cards in the battle area, you get to Digivolve -2 one of your opponent's Digimon, and then when attacking for its inheritable once per turn, by trashing one of your option cards in the battle area, trash your opponent's top security. So very strong. As you're starting to see that the archetype is sort of all over, you know, that's actually something I wanted to talk about, but we'll get into it towards the end. But one of the things you're starting to see is there's a lot of interesting effects that are kind of stacked together, so don't feel too afraid. That's kind of the key. But we now have to go over the boss and the namesake of the deck, as it's time to look at Justimon. Starting off, we have EX2's Justimon Blitzarm, which started it all. When Digivolving, you get to activate one of the effects below. You can either gain 2000 DP for the turn, unsuspend this Digimon, or delete one of your opponent's Digimon with a play cost of 5 or less. And then when attacking once per turn, for each Tamer you have in play, you get to activate this Digimon's when Digivolving effect. So very strong and a great way to start. But unlike most, the deck theme of Justimon was finally here, and you'll see it with the next one that was released in the form of Justimon Critical Arm. Now, Justimon Critical Arm can Digivolve on top of any Digimon that contains Justimon in its name for a cost of 1. And then when Digivolving, by returning 1 non-Justimon Critical Arm with one Justimon Critical Arm card with Justimon in its name from this Digimon's Digievolution cards to its owner's hand, you get to delete one of your opponent's Digimon with a play cost of 9 or less. And then when attacking, if you have a Tamer in play, you may Digivolve this Digimon into a non-Justimon Critical Arm Digimon card with Justimon in its name in your hand for 2 memory, ignoring its evolution requirements. So that was a mouthful, but you see it. But also, let's talk about Accelarm. So, Justimon Accelarm has the same condition where it can Digivolve on top of any Digimon with Justimon in its name for a cost of 1. When Digivolving, by returning 1 level 6 Digimon card with Justimon without Accelarm in its name From this Digimon's evolution cards to its owner's hand, this Digimon gains security attack +1 and piercing for the turn, and when attacking, if you have a tamer in play, this Digimon can digivolve into a Digimon card with Justimon in its name, other than Justimon Accelarm, in your hand for Digi-Evolution cost of 2, ignoring its Digi-Evolution requirements. That is a mouthful, trust me. But as you're starting to get it, you kind of slide evolve into each of its arm forms. Now, this is cool. But we have even more to talk about, as it's time to introduce you to Justimon Blitz Arm Ace, where this can digivolve on top of either Excel Arm or Critical Arm for a cost of 1 as its special evolution condition. It is an Ace Digimon, so blast evolution, but more importantly, on play and when digivolving until the end of your opponent's turn, this Digimon gains blocker and isn't affected by their Digimon's effects when digivolving and when attacking once per turn. By trashing one option card in the battle area, this Digimon unsuspends, and it carries overflow -4. So as you can tell, this is a pseudo replacement for Blitzarm, because now you have access to an Ace Digimon, and I think that's really cool. But we're not done, not yet, as we still have one more Justimon to cover, and I think it's the drippiest one of all, as it's time to see Justimon X. As Justimon X is arriving in EX8, we will have this very soon, but I really love its design. Starting off, it can digivolve on top of any level 6 with Justimon in its name, with or without the X antibody trait for a cost of 1. More importantly, it has Rush and Piercing as its main skill, and Security Attack +1. 3 really good effects already stashed into one card. Then when attacking once per turn, activate one when digivolving effect of one Digimon card with Justimon in its name in this Digimon's Digi-Evolution cards as an effect of this Digimon. During the end of your turn once per turn, if your opponent has an unsuspended Digimon, this Digimon may attack a player. Whoa, that was a lot. And arguably, that is all the Justimons for right now. Currently, I think that's all the forms of Justimon until they want to create something new. But man, whew, that was a mouthful. Now, we can talk about the Tamers. Luckily, they are not a mouthful. And there are only 2 currently, which I think is a shame. But, it is what it is, as we are going to talk about both Ryo Akiyamas here, starting off with our good old faithful one from the original EX2. So when we read Ryo Akiyama, what does he do? On play, and you get to reveal the top 4 cards of your deck, add 1 card with Dramon or Justimon in its name among them to the hand, and you place the remaining cards at the bottom of the deck. In any order, when you attack, you may give one of your black Digimon by suspending this card 1000 DP until the end of your opponent's turn, and obviously for security effect, you just simply play out Ryo. So very solid, as that is very obviously a good effect, but also very standard for the time, and can actually search a wide array of cards by the happenstance of what he can search. But let's move into BT19's Ryo, and you'll start to see where the archetype is going. At the start of your main phase, by placing one option card with the device trait from your hand in the battle area, you get to draw 1 card, and for its main effect, by suspending this tamer and trashing 4 of your option cards with the device trait in the battle area, you may play 1 cyberdramon from your hand or trash without paying the cost. Very solid. Now it's time to talk about the device options. The best way I can explain them to you, if you do not know what these are, is that they're basically like the plugins in a similar way, where they have different effects, and they actually have somewhat generic effects if you could trash them off the battle area. But obviously, with their text being included in a lot of the Justimon cards, you're meant to use them together. But today, let's talk about what they do. So let's look at the first option, as a few of them are actually in the TCG right now, so you can just check them out, as we will be getting the rest in 2.5. Let's start off with Bishop Device. Effectively, I'll just read this one, and then I'll explain all their generic effects together, so it's a bit easier to read them. While you don't have Bishop Device in the battle area, you may ignore this this card's color requirement. Then when this card is trashed from the battle area until the end of your opponent's turn, one of their Digimon or Tamers can't suspend, and for its main effect, until the end of your opponent's turn, one of their Digimon or Tamers can't suspend. Then you place this card in the battle area. For its security effect, return one of your opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon to the bottom of the deck. Then you get to add this card to the hand. So for the device cards, it's pretty clear what they do. You can ignore their color requirements if you don't control one, so you can just simply use them whenever you need to. But additionally, the main factor is they have an effect that allows them to, when they're trashed, they get an additional effect off, and then when they're used, you have their main effect. And their security effect is usually something a bit different. So pretty much that's how they function, and that's exactly how they work, is you just simply play them, then you can Somehow, if you can remove them from the field, they usually trigger an effect. However, there is one that has its own effect, and I'll talk about that one in a second. But we have to look at the next one, which is Rook, which is the black one. This one's really cool because I think if you are playing Justimon, you might actually opt to play this because it is just a black card in general, so it's not a bad option if you want to play it. But the main thing here is that when you use it, it gives one of your Digimon reboot blocker and gets 2000 DP until the end of your opponent's turn, and it copies the same effect on its main effect. And for its actual security effect, it de-digivolves to one of your opponent's Digimon and then adds itself to the hand. So I think that's actually very good because it just means it's a good removal, and also gives your cards a lot of staying power and pressuring your opponent when maybe they're not expecting it. Now, Pawn Device is unique because what Pawn does is the only one with a delay effect, so you can actually remove it from the field. But what you do is, with its main effect, you just draw one card and place it in the battle area. Then when you use its delay effect, you trash it, and then by trashing one of your non-red option cards in the battle area, you gain one memory. So what this does is that you trash itself, it trashes one of your other non-red ones, so you can't just do pawn into pawn, and then you gain a memory off of trashing that one so that you can trigger their effects. So pawn is very important in that it enables all the other one devices if you don't have a way to manually get rid of the options. So yeah, it is cool. And then for its security effect, it deletes 11,000 DP or less Digimon, one, and then adds itself to the hand. So this one's pretty solid, but if you're going to play a good amount of them, you have to play them. Then we'll cover Queen device, which is coming on BT19 with the rest of them, or we'll get into 2.5, where this one allows you to effectively minus 3,000 DP on one of your opponent's Digimon, and then they can't use one Digivolving effects. That's also its main effect. And then for its security effect, you just give security attack -2 to 2 of your opponent's Digimon, and you add it to the hand. So it's pretty solid in saving you, I guess, if you want to run it. Knight's device works as it gives you piercing and 4,000 DP on one of your Digimon, same effect for its main effect, and then you suspend 2 of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers, and then you add this card to your hand. I think it's really cool. Additionally, finally, we'll stop with King's Device. So King's Device is interesting because what it does is that when this card is trashed from the battle area, it places a device trait option with a use cost of 3 or less from your trash in the battle area. Its main effect does the same thing. So basically, by using King, you put back one of your other already devices that are in the trash to the field, and then it basically sets up for what you want to do by just simply cycling them back to the field so you have one to burst off. And then for its security effect, you may place one option card with the device trait from your hand in the battle area, then you add it to the hand. I think it's really cool because it gets them out of your hand, and pretty much that is all the device cards. They're really unique. I'll talk about that in a second about what I think about their design in terms of what they do, but we have finally one more card to talk about when it comes to options focused around Justimon. And I really want to talk about this one because I think this one's kind of hilarious because of what Justimon's based off of, because he's clearly based off Kamen Rider. He does the Justice Kick, which is his special move. But the point is, for this 12 cost, when you use this card, you reduce its play cost by 1 for each Tamer you have in play. Then, for its main effect, you may play one Digimon card with Justimon in its name from your hand without paying the cost. If you do, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with a play cost less than or equal to this Digimon you played. Then for the security effect, you simply play a black Tamer from your hand without paying the cost, and then you add this card to your hand. So, very powerful, and pretty much that is it for all of the cards. However, there are specifically 3, technically 4 cards I could talk about, but let me talk about the missing Digimon. I have not talked about the support Justimon in the form of Fujinmon, Raijimon, and Suijinmon. So all of them are very interesting. I like all of them. However, with their effects, you will effectively, for 1 memory, you get to place one of these level 6 Digimon underneath a Justimon or Raidenmon in name in play. And then obviously you get to use its inheritable on the Justimon. Now, the main reason I like these cards, but I have to be honest, when it comes down to it, Fujinmon lets you suspend for its inheritable, suspend a 5,000 K DP or less Digimon, and then it doesn't unsuspend during your opponent's next unsuspend phase. Additionally, you have the Suijinmon, which allows you to, if I'm correct, return one of your opponent's level 4 lower Digimon to the hand, so it's a bouncer. And then finally, with something like the Raijinmon, this one allows you to give one of your opponent's Digimon minus 4,000 DP. These cards are cool. The problem is with the strategy, it just clogs up the Justimon deck. I understand when people were playing this as like a big Mega Zoo deck where you would hard slam with Justice Kick and Tamers and just simply load them underneath. But unfortunately, that time I think is past, where these cards are still technically bricks in the deck because of how many level 6s you have to run in Justimon. I think that's where this deck's actual main strategy makes it handicapped, because you can't really have a diversity of effects with these. So you're kind of just stuck with whatever you've got, and you just have to make it work. But let's move on into how the deck actually functions. The simplicity in Justimon is that the strategy is obviously an OTK variant, and usually wants to focus on just being aggressive to your opponent. You want to get into Justimon as quickly as possible, so getting into Justimon, whether it is going to be the Blitzarm or Excel or a critical, you just want to get into them very fast, and that's the key way of getting the strategy going. You want to make sure you have your pieces in hand, so you want to search out for Justimon as quickly as possible, get them ready to go, because you really try to want to one-shot your opponent and clear their board, as that's the main strategy that Justimon's aiming for. It really just wants to say, hey, I'm here, and then hit as hard as you can to try to close up the game. The new Cyberdramon X is a mandatory, I think, when this card is released in EX8, because of how good it's going to facilitate the actual use of the device options, and it allows you to use them for its effect to digivolve or just simply place them. And then with some other cards, it's a good combination. Additionally, with the new Justimon Ace, once you receive this in Special Booster 2.5, the deck really does receive a power boost. It makes it a little bit more efficient, and it means just having Cyberdramon on field is not the end of the day. You can just blast evolve into this thing and allow yourself to kind of climb up to the races. Excel Arm and Critical Arm are obviously cards you still play, because they are going to be the main focus of your strategy's OTK potential, and pretty much that's all it will do, as that's pretty much what the strategy wants to do. Like I said, the strategy is pretty straightforward. It doesn't really have any ins and outs and turns. It really just wants to commit to what it does and swing hard. So with something like Justimon X, when it's finally here, you'll just kind of add on to the extra levels of aggression. So let's move into the closing segment. Usually for the closing segments, I have cards, or I talk about the future or some extra stuff as well. For this specific video for Justimon, I will be talking about what I think it needs for the future, because as much as I think this deck has gotten good support, I still think it needs a bit more support, another wave of support. And the main reason why is, like I said, it's low end, or like the level 4s and 3s really need development, because if we really look at what Justimon's working with, it's primarily working with some pretty good Cyberdramons. It has a good Searcher for Monodramon. It has one good BT19 Strike Dramon, but it's still missing some stuff. Primarily in another Tamer. I think a Memory Fixer for this deck is a mandatory, because this deck with 3 memory really can do a lot more than it can with like 1 or 2 memory. So I think a Memory Fixing Rio is necessary. Additionally, it needs a Warping Tamer. You've seen these with like Rika and Takato, and we've even seen this with Henry. But I think this deck needs a Warping Tamer because of how quickly it needs to get into Justimon. This deck would actually take better advantage of a Warping Tamer, I think, than the other decks, because when you warp into Justimon, Justimon literally is the focus of the deck. So once you get into Justimon, the deck can do a lot of damage. Like the other decks, they kind of focus on the usage of their megas, but with Justimon, they really do need to climb into Justimon Ace or Justimon Blitzarm, any of the Justimons, really, to try to close the gap. And I think a Memory Fixer Tamer, but more importantly, being able to warp into Justimon with Rio would be, I think, the icing on the cake for this deck, to really give it a chance to be a really more competitive strategy, as I think this deck suffers from being kind of slow, and it really does have to climb into its aggression piece quicker. I think this was accelerated with the introduction of both Justimon Ace and Cyberdramon Ace, which really do allow this deck to climb up quickly. It also still needs, I think, another way to either get Tamers out quickly or find a way to trash and search. If they're going to continue to use the device options, I think having a Monodramon or a Strike Dramon that simply plays out the device cards from either the trash or the hand would be cool too, because this deck would need to find a way to use them without just hard playing these, because as good as the device options are to an extent, their biggest weakness is that they don't have a way to be played for free reliably. And you want to be able to do that consistently through your combos so that they can actually do something, because unfortunately, like I said, all the device options, they're not bricks, but they're also not really what you want to see, because if you see this in no engine, then the deck doesn't do anything. So that's kind of the problem. You don't really want to clunk up your deck with a lot of these device options and then not have access to, say, like your Strike Dramon, your cyberdramons, your Justimon pieces. Like, you're not seeing them because you have to run these. I think it'd be better if all of them said you just draw one as well for their effects, but that's neither here or there. My thing is that this deck is still very viable, and it will be a fun deck once the support is released. But pretty much that's all I've got for you guys today. I hope this was a good basic breakdown for Justimon, and you let me know down below in the comments which deck you're most excited for from the upcoming EX8 set. And as always, this has been Brad from the Ed Army signing off, and for all of you out there, to sign on.